So, welcome back to Candid Conversations with Des Del Rey. I am Des. I'm missing my partner, Del Rey. Um, but don't worry, she'll be back. Um, so I just decided we're gonna make this whole grief thing a series. I just feel like the way it was received, I got some real positive feedback and I really just felt like I was helping somebody. So we're gonna make this a grief series. So this is grief part two. This one's called remembering the beginning even at the end. So, I was driving home today and I kind of laughed to myself because I was remembering how James and I met. If you were there, then you were there and you know, but I'm going to go into the story with you. But before I go into that story, I want to put it into context. Um, the last thing I said to James was that I love you and I'm not going to let you die. That was the last thing I said to him. However, our last conversation, um, it was a pretty intense conversation. And it basically we were resolving an argument that day, and I was just explaining to him that if it ever came down to it, I would take care of him all over again because I just loved him that much. If it ever came down to it and he got old and he had to wear diapers, I would just be that person that was wiping him. If I had to get him, hoist him up in the van, whatever the case may be, if he was confined to a wheelchair, whatever it was, I would do it all over again because I loved him that much. And I just had to explain to him that it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to take care of him. It was the fact that I was scared that something else happened. I was scared that my worst fear came true. And like I told him, I said, I love you on purpose, intentionally, until death do us part. And that was the last real conversation with him. That was my last real conversation with him. So, like I said, a little bit earlier, I was sitting in my car and I was driving home and I got to thinking about how we met. And then I started thinking about how the end of his life went in that day. And I just kind of laughed because there was a point when he passed away that I remember I remember sitting in my room surrounded by all this stuff, and all I could think about was the day we met. And I'm like, how are you finding beauty and laughter in the end? Like, how does that happen? Um, because at the time I felt like I should have been down and out and in despair and I can't move on and I won't move on. But luckily God allowed me to look at the beginning even at the end. Um, and so here's a story about how we met. Let me set the scene for you. So I was 18. I had real long hair, had the Coke bottle shape. I was doing it. I was it. I was it. I had all the confidence about me. Confidence exude from my walk. It was everything. The way I walked, the way I talked, it was everything. So I'm in Louisiana and my sister is in Nashville and she went to Fisk for a brief time. And so we talked every day. It never fails. We still talk to each other every day. But while I was away, we called each other every day, and sometimes we stayed on the phone with each other all day. Well, she was, I think, sitting in some lounge. I don't know the correct term for it. And, all the people that went to Fisk, don't judge me because I don't know the terms for the buildings and things like that, but you'll know what I'm talking about. Either way it goes, she was sitting in some lounge where a cafeteria or whatever it was. And she's like, "Hey, I want to tell you about this guy." And I was like, well, I don't like just any and everybody. So whoever it is, gotta be on point. They gotta have something. They gotta have a little money in their pocket. They gotta be able to do something. And she's like, "Well, his name's James, and he's really sweet." And at the time, I was like, "I don't like sweet guys. I didn't like the good guy or anything else like that." So I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And so she's like, "Yeah, when you come back down here for one of your breaks, you're gonna have to meet him." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so, I waited a little bit until she got out of his presence. And I was like, "What does he look like?" She's like, "He's tall and he's light skinned." I said, "Okay." Because if you knew me in high school, you knew I loved a good dark skinned man. I did, and I still do. And I like light skinned men too, but we ain't getting into that. And I was like, okay. And she's like, "He's really sweet." And I was like, "No, I'm done with it. Sweet, I don't want him sweet. I like him a little rough around the edges. So it's a no for me." And she's like, "Well, he really wants to meet you." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not interested in meeting him. It's a no." I'm like, no. And so I ended up coming back home for fall break. I remember I had on a orange tank top and green pants. And I have no idea why I remember what I had on. But it was a gym party and they were having a good time, and my sister's like, "We're not going to stay that long." And I was like, "Okay." All the while I'm not feeling it cuz I'm like, "Hey, I'm ready to go. Ain't nothing here popping or whatever." Y'all, the next thing I know, I see this 6'6", 300 some odd pound, light skinned man, like literally running towards me, barreling towards me. And I was up against the bleachers and they were pushed back at the time. So I'm sitting there like, "Lord, I hope he got some brakes on them Lamborghinis, because if he crashes into me, I'm done for. Done for. Done for. I'm just going to be like a bug splattered on a windshield." Y'all, when he came up to me, I was like this. I was like, "No, don't run into me." But he stopped and he's like, "My name is James." And I just sat there and looked at him. I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm the guy that your sister was telling you about." I said, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. Um, please excuse me for a second." Yeah, I said, "Well, that's interesting." Um, I was like, "Well, it's nice to meet you." Y'all, excuse me, I have to let my dog out the room. But I was like, "It's nice to meet you." He's like, "You want to dance?" And I was looking at him. I was like, "No, because it looks like you can't dance." And he never told me if he could or not. But after a while, he wore me down, so we danced a little bit. And he's like, he said, "What would it take for me to be able to take you on a date?" I said, "It would take a steak dinner and a Coke." And he's like, "All right, bet." And so I'm sitting there like, okay, because first off, you don't look like you got steak money. That's the first thing. And I know I deserve the absolute finest. So after the party, we did a few other things, and then we went home. So I gave him my phone number, and he texted me, and he's like, "Are you ready to go out?" And I was like, "Go out where?" He said, "You want steak, so it's your choice." Y'all, my jaw dropped to the floor because I was like, "You really are finna buy me a steak dinner. You're really about to do it." So we went out. We had a good time. It was cute. We both were playing coy. Um, and he's like, "I know you got to go back to Louisiana. Matter of fact, I was leaving that next day." And he's like, "Can we still talk to each other?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't mind." So it was really sweet, you all. So while I was back in Louisiana, we would have date nights or we would watch movies together because somehow he would have these websites where I could stream movies, and so we would queue up the same movie. We would both have our snacks, and we would press play at the same time. I remember watching Lion King with a can of Coke in my hand and having my popcorn and my Oreos, and he had his snacks, and we would just sit there and we would talk about the movie and we watch it together. We did that for about a good 7 to 8 months. And then I just completely stopped talking to him. Yep, I completely stopped talking to him. I still checked on him via my sister, and he still checked on me, but I just stopped talking to him. Um, and I'll get to the reason behind that in a minute. So I'm sitting there and I'm going throughout life and trying to mind my own business and do the right thing. Y'all, it didn't work. I had a dream once um, around this time, in between the time that I stopped talking to him and when we started back talking to each other in 2012. Y'all, had a dream that I married this man, and a part of my heart was like, "Oh, he's the right one for me," and then the other part was like, "Are you ready for it?" So when we met back in 2012, we started dating again. Um, Matter of fact, that Joker stayed with me. And I didn't mind because I had somebody there to make me laugh and to eat with and everything else like that. So, we had the hard conversation. He's like, "What happened? You just kind of stopped talking to me." And like I told him, I was like, "Excuse me again." One of his fur babies want to come into this room. Anywho, so I had to be 100% honest with him. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. If you knew James, you knew he was a kind hearted and really sweet person. Really sweet person. He wouldn't hurt a fly unless he absolutely had to. Um, and aside from that's not what I was looking for at the time, I didn't know how to appreciate it. So I told him, I said, "Hey, at the time I was really depressed. I was hell bent on destroying myself, and you were too nice of a person for me to take you down with me." I was like, "So I decided to destroy myself and not take you along in the process." I was like, "You were too sweet of a person to me. You were too kind for me to sit there and make you go through that." Um, I believe that my depression was mine and mine alone, and that was something that I had to bear, and that's something that I had to work through. And I didn't want to inflict that on him. He told me, he's like, that hurt me, and he's like, I dealt with that for a long time, and like I told him, man, if I would have known how much it hurt you, I would have apologized right then and there, and I would have explained it to you. It had nothing to do with you. I was attracted to you. I was still interested in you. It was me. It was something I was dealing with. Um, so fast forward, 2012. We spend a few holidays together. He gets to meet my dad and he meets my mom and everything else like that. And in 2013, we got married. Um, Now I will say that we got married very young. We got married really young at 21. Um, but I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. It's not something I regret at all because I learned a lot in that process. There were things that he taught me about myself that these are lessons that I only could have learned from him. Um, and there were so many people that he connected me with um, that loved me too because of him, because he loved me. Um, and so I was thinking about that while I was driving home today, and it caught me off guard because there was a time where when he passed away, I was angry about the whole thing. I was like, I wish I would have never met him. I wish I didn't have to go through this. I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish. And then God reminded me that I spent, aside from knowing him for 10 years, I spent 6 amazing years being with my best friend. And like I've told you all before, in the 6 years that we were married, we accomplished the type of companionship and love that you see in older relationships. I'm talking people that have been married for 40 to 50 some years. And, we didn't take that lightly because that is something we talked about back in December of 2019. We talked about all the progress and things we made. And one of our biggest issues were that we were two young kids that didn't know how to communicate. That was one of the biggest issues that we had to work on. There were times where we talked about divorce because we didn't know how to communicate. And when we tried to communicate, it turned out as yelling and a lot of other things. And I can laugh about it now because I realized that we were saying the same things just in a different way. And we were thinking that we were misunderstanding each other, but we didn't stop to slow down and listen because there's a difference between hearing somebody and listening. Um, and we surrounded ourselves with other couples, other godly couples. And so, a big shout out to those couples that helped us through those tough times, that mentored us and that talked to us and checked on us, and even as individuals, you all helped us. You helped us through some tough times, you helped us through some funny times. Um and when we got married, my godfather, when we signed our marriage certificate, he told us one thing, and he said there should only be three people in your relationship, in your marriage: you, James, and God should be in the center. And that is something that we tried to keep that mindset moving forward, but we weren't perfect, and sometimes we forgot to consult God, and we kind of consulted other people. But I say all that to say that sometimes it's about how you look at things. Yes, my husband did pass away. Yes, I could be down and out and in despair. My life could stop. A lot of things could have happened. I could have took this a lot of ways, but I chose to remember the beginning at the end. And sometimes you just got to look at what you went through and everything that you learned and all the blessings that you got from that person. And that is one of the things, honestly, that keeps me going. And that's one of the things that keeps me moving forward, because a lot of the things that I know now about survival and just other things, I would have never learned had I not met him, had I not been with him, had I not married him. There's a lot of things that I wouldn't have learned, and there's a lot of things that he wouldn't have taught, like communication, and this is how I like to be talked to, because that is important. Um, so that is my little snippet on remembering the beginning at the end. So, um, as I previously mentioned, this is going to become a series. And so, with that, you have to look forward to interviews with other family members, mine and his included, if they will. I haven't asked yet, so this is the first time hearing about it. But I plan on interviewing my own family, and maybe and some of his friends too, if they want to too. And it's just to share how they process their own grief and share happy memories and things like that, because that was what we were about experiences, positive experiences, and laughter. There was not a time that we weren't laughing. If you knew James, if you knew us as a couple, we laughed at everything. We laughed at the most inappropriate things. Um, it was who we are. I still laugh at inappropriate things, if I'm being honest. And there are memes and things that I see that I know only James would send it had he been here. He would have been texted it to me and texted it to 1,000 other people. So yeah, that's a little bit of what's to come. We're just gonna dig into this and hopefully we'll help somebody else. So like my dad says, be encouraged, and like I say, make good choices. And if you can't make good choices, then make bad choices? No, I'm just kidding. Make good choices because I don't need you telling anybody that I told you to make bad choices. Make good choices. Bye.